Welcome everyone to the next presentation. If you like HashiCorp Vault, you might love OpenBOW. Welcome, Hofi, to the next presentation.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, it's fantastic to be back in Zug. For me personally, always an annual highlight. Thanks a lot for the Siemens crew for organizing such a cool event. And yeah, I guess it gets better every year. This year we have romantic lights. Looking forward to next year. Also thanks to Jan and Pasquale for the introduction of and overview on the CIP. Really great to see a neighboring Linux Foundation project. And yeah, if you ask about the OpenSSF budget and where it goes, well, you can see it. No, jokes aside, I had to pay that for myself. Sad me. So I'm Michael Hover. Most colleagues just call me Hofi since we have a quorum of Michaels at Finis. And during the day, I try very hard to contribute to the OpenBOW project in my role as the technical steering committee chair. So whenever it's about fostering the maturity, growing the project, getting connected with other communities, that's a bit what I'm focused on. So we raise awareness about the project and hopefully make it better every day. And yeah, during the night, I try to make a living as the CTO at Finis. Now, in the next few minutes, I would like to give you a brief overview of OpenBOW as a project and why we believe it's the sustainable way to achieve secrets management. So think about 30, 40 minutes of OpenBOW ads. Now, brief recap, what is secrets management? I'm aware most folks here will have strong technical backgrounds, so it's obvious. So secrets management is basically the practice of making sure all your secrets, your API tokens, certificates, credential pairs, client ID, client secrets are kept secure. So it's all about your machine workloads and how they communicate securely with each other. So we don't care about your passwords, which of course are always stored securely in a password manager. Now, inherently, such a secrets management solution needs to be super secure. I think that's kind of obvious, but also it needs to be flexible and well integratable. And that's a crucial part because, well, our main audience for a secrets management solution are usually technical teams. They want it to be developer friendly. It just has to work. And yeah, you don't want to get bothered about it too much. So talking to a lot of community users and organizations on a daily basis, it usually boils down to kind of three rationales or reasons why to invest into secrets management. Now, cybersecurity is kind of obvious. Everybody tries to get better, hopefully. There are also legislations and regulations that we already heard, the Cyber Resilience Act and others. But yeah, many organizations are still facing secret sprawl, so secrets are all over the place. Things are never rotated. If you come back to your organization a few years later and it's still the same root password on your Linux VMs and Kubernetes credentials, well, too bad they were never rotated. But also auditors coming in, checking your compliance level, and yeah, if they've notice some issues and flag some risks, you're in a pickle. So that's usually reasons why organizations start to adopt secrets management. And with the whole geopolitical movements, the idea of data sovereignty is also becoming a more important factor. The other, of course, I guess also relevant for you, efficiency. You might have survived that yourself, but you order or you need a X509 certificate internally, and then you get it delivered via mail in your inbox, the private key and signed certificate. Well, too bad. Sometimes you get it shared via Teams or Slack. It all happens, or you basically have to become a secrets management expert yourself, which, well, is maybe not your profession. You actually just want to code, create something cool and innovative. And finally, well, organizations are also in the business of saving money, cutting costs. And so that can also be a driving factor because a lot of cybersecurity solutions these days have very high license costs, especially proprietary ones. And that's another huge challenge we see every day. So looking at the secrets management ecosystem, we are facing some challenges today. So we see modern teams wanting modern, well-integrated solutions. So there's huge demand usually in organizations. But at the same time, we have proprietary solutions which kind of force architecture by license on you. So often we would also call this a success tax. You get taxed for being successful with your secrets management platform. If you grow adoption, costs start to explode. So there's some weird per user, per identity, per client pricing, feature, SLA level, all sorts of things that make it very hard to predict costs. And that's when you, maybe as a developer, as an engineer, you ask internally, hey, I have this cool application. I want to onboard it to the secrets management solution. Few pipelines, maybe few Kubernetes deployments. And then the response you get from the product manager is, oh, we don't have the budget this year. Because the first question will always be, what will this integration cost me? And not how can we make your lives easier. And so at the same time, if you have proprietary solutions, the question is also on sovereignty. Do you have access to the source code? Can you vet it yourself? What happens if the license expires? Do you lose access to your crown jewels, to your very sensitive data? Or do you have it all under your own control? And so these three things like technical demand, features, costs, but also sovereignty, data control, transparency lead us to the question like, isn't there a sustainable solution for that? So of course, OpenBOW is here and helps with those challenges. So quick question for the audience here. Who knows OpenBOW, has heard about it? Oh, plenty of folks. So very good that I also paid some actors to raise their hands. Gives me a bit of confidence. So OpenBOW is a modern open source secrets management solution. And basically it covers a lot of use cases you might have. So ranging from static secrets, you have a mess all over the place, then you put it into OpenBOW, into one or different platforms. So that's usually called static secrets management. You move the cheese from one place to another where it's hopefully more accessible and more secure. Now, dynamic secrets management is where most organizations are heading to. So these so-called just-in-time access, least privilege access, whatever you want to call it. So you only get a short-lived identity, and OpenBOW can help you with that. So OpenBOW can issue for your workload, let's say 30-minute access to a Postgre database or AWS tenant / account, Azure subscription, whatever your need is. Another large use case that OpenBOW is used for is key management and the cryptography as a service. So it can host, generate, maintain a lot of different cryptographic keys. And you can use then the OpenBOW APIs to sign data, encrypt, decrypt data. So you offload that from your application to OpenBOW. And finally, a third large use case is PKI, certificate management. So a lot of us probably have dealt with kind of traditional Windows PKI environments, and you want to hook something up with Acme and it's not possible, and well, it's all a manual process, and yeah, OpenBOW is here to help with that as well. Now, where is OpenBOW coming from? As Roger already teased, OpenBOW is a fork of HashiCorp Vault, dating back to 2 to 3 years ago when the initial fork happened. And that was the time you might remember when HashiCorp changed the licenses of all their products from MPL to BSL. So basically from open source to proprietary. Does somebody know who was a driving force behind the fork? Not me, no, it wasn't me. So basically, one of the key players in creating the fork was IBM themselves. And that's a bit of a side story or fun side story that IBM triggered the fork because as part of the Linux Foundation Edge, they were invested or are invested in the Open Horizon solution and used Vault there. Vault's license was changed. They were blocked, so they helped drive the fork, which was in a similar time frame than Terraform to OpenTofu. And we kind of were stuck with the Asian food theme. And I guess you don't really know what's inside a bao, right? It's like a secret. Maybe that was a bit the dad joke behind it. But yeah, IBM was the driving force. And well, unfortunately, a few months later, they acquired HashiCorp. And the other colleagues were starting to get pulled out of the project. And today they are sadly no longer with the OpenBAO project, but who knows, we would for sure, welcome them back. Now, what's important, why you should know about this history is still to this day, the OpenBAO project tries to remain API compatible. So whenever you see a tool out there, a solution that says Vault supported, has a stamp on it, there's a very high chance that this will work out of the box with OpenBAO. Now, how do we work as a community? What's the setup? Is this a kind of driving thing by Edfinis as a pet project? Well, not at all. So this is not about Edfinis. This is all about OpenBAO. And yeah, I think we are quite proud to have roughly a maintainer, co-maintainer base of 10, 15 to 20 colleagues who are actively working on a day-to-day basis on the project. And that's also a healthy, important number if you have a security solution. So at this point, well, huge thanks to all co-maintainers and especially the community who push the project to the next level. On the steering level, there's the so-called Technical Steering Committee, the TSC, which decides about project roadmap, priorities, funding, if there will be any. And this is not a single vendor project. So if we think about sustainability again, it's important that such projects are ideally multi-vendor driven. So we don't see another rug pull scheme or situation. And besides being anchored in the OpenSSF, as mentioned, there are several organizations involved. So for example, Edfinis, Control Plane, we also have GitLab, they're also here today, super cool. And IoTech, which offers an IoT-OT solution, SAP, and Wallix being an identity access management player. And that's just the TSC or some of the core maintainers involved. We also have a growing ecosystem, and it's just amazing to see that a few months ago we started this kind of idea, hey, let's put a website online, an ecosystem page on our website, openbao.org, where you can see who is using, adopting, integrating with OpenBAO. And yeah, the ecosystem has just started growing very quickly. So we have ISVs on there, HSM vendors, cloud service providers, a bit of everything. And yeah, super cool to see how the project is growing. Now, quick interruption for a word from my sponsor. So basically, when we talk about sustainability and seeing that this is a multi-vendor project, it's also key, how do we drive this in the long run? We heard from CIP as well the topic of budget. And so we were basically facing the same question at Edfinis. How can we commit to the project in the long run? And for that, we also need a source of revenue. So Edfinis is a system integrator providing professional managed services. but we looked for a more sustainable way how we can basically get paid for full-time upstream work. And that's how we productized Secrets Enterprise, and that's an enterprise subscription for OpenBOW. So think like 24/7 enterprise support and software assurance. So we commit to maintain OpenBOW in the long run. And we wanted to do this in a way that is completely vendor lock-in free. So basically, our customers use OpenBOW Vanilla, provided by the upstream community, and we provide the enterprise software assurance on top. So think about it like you have a house, now you buy an insurance on top, and the good thing is that customers can drop the subscription at any point, and there's no impact on their workloads. So they have full unrestricted access to everything, no shenanigans with per identity limitations or similar. And since we follow an upstream first strategy, that fits perfectly because we can work full time on OpenBOW. Now let's go back to OpenBOW. There's been some cool developments recently in terms of features. Some are unique, others are basically enterprise capabilities that the community asked for. So besides Raft / integrated storage that you might know, we also added support for Postgre, just to give organizations also alternative options, especially if they have already well-established database Postgre footprints for the storage backend. One very important topic for the community is also operator experience. So secrets management in itself is already complex enough with all the integrations, the challenges to tackle. And so we want to make sure the operator experience is as smooth as possible. And so we are trying to get rid of any manual steps that you need to maybe maintain, deploy clusters. And some of these things, for example, were making sure that the initialization process, this is where the whole envelope encryption is set up, recovery / unseal keys. So it's a bit of a usual process heavy topic, the key ceremony. And this all has now been basically mitigated through a declarative manner. So more and more gaps that we fill to make sure everything can be smoothly deployed. We of course also have popular features like namespaces, so basically multi-tenancy, and again making sure that's API compatible to Vault Enterprise. And we actually made multi-tenancy a bit stronger, and there's a flag to revert and loosen it slightly, so it's again Vault Enterprise compatible. In 2.5.250, just recently, we released horizontal read scalability, so that followers / standby nodes in your cluster can also start answering read requests, and that will be basically the foundation to further look into features like disaster recovery, replication, and other capabilities. So where are we heading as a project? At the moment, we have two distinct directions, as we call it. Maybe we might have borrowed this term from GitLab, who knows? But on the project level, we are all focused on maturity, growing the project to the next stage, as you can see. So ecosystem growth, doing outreach, showing gratitude to our contributors, but also reaching the next stage in the OpenSSF maturity levels. So at the moment we are at the sandbox level, and there's just a few formalities to tackle, and then we should be able to apply for incubation. We also want to do more marketing to raise awareness of the project. So this is less about driving some sort of commercial marketing or whatever, but really raising awareness, because what we've seen in the past is that sometimes, for example, security researchers only reported vulnerabilities to, well, so to speak, our upstream project, which is IBM Vault, but not to OpenBOW, because they were not aware that OpenBOW exists. So by raising awareness, we hope that we also get more contributors, of course, and feedback from testing, from using the features and the capabilities. But we also know we have some gaps. So in terms of documentation, guidelines, reference architectures, we still have several gaps to cover, since we know the entry barrier is still a bit steep if you don't have maybe a previous Vault background. On the development side, in terms of features, there's some super cool things coming up, like external key support, so that you can offload certain cryptographic material from OpenBOW into HSMs. So some organizations want, for example, that their private key of the PKI of their root CA is stored or backed by HSMs or KMS solutions. We are now pluginizing more and more of the components. So there's already plugins for secrets engines. This is where you store the secrets, auth methods. This is how you authenticate workloads, machines. But we now take it one step further to also make sure that the seals are pluginized. So the seals is where the whole unsealing process takes place to make sure OpenBOW can access its encrypted storage. And by making sure we pluginize those as well, we cannot only make the core leaner, give organizations more choice in what they actually want in OpenBOW or don't, but also, again, in this idea of sustainability, we can delegate maintenance and integrations to vendors, to other community members. For example, we now have requests from OVH, from Open Telecom Cloud, and other cloud providers who are all quite keen to integrate their solutions, and giving them a process to donate plugins but retain maintainership seems like a very good approach so far. Or we work with the external secrets operator community. You might know that operator for Kubernetes, where we are now working on a dedicated OpenBOW provider, just to make sure we can integrate new capabilities more easily. And users don't always have to rely on the Vault versions. Cool. So if you're interested, just want to check out the project, or you wish to contribute, please have a look at openbow.org/community. We have a Zulip channel. Many might not be familiar with Zulip, but we see now a growing amount of users joining, asking questions, or of course also just join our community calls. Everything is transparent. There are meeting notes. Most meetings are recorded even. So transparency is key in driving the community and being open. And of course, there's GitHub, raise an issue or a discussion, whatever works best for you. Now, we are also organized, as we heard from the CIP, in working groups, if there are specific topics of interest, or also if you say, hey, I don't have the time, the knowledge, whatever to contribute, but I know my organization is somehow using OpenBOW, please reach out. It helps us a lot as a project to raise awareness, to showcase that actually OpenBOW is very widely in use and not just a pet project. All right, so we don't just yet have a nice contributor swag store as GitLab yet, but yeah, we still have some swag to give away. So the first few 3 people who raise 3 mergeable pull requests, drop me a mail, and hopefully we can get some swag over to you. Cool. Thank you very much.
Hi, some questions and comments from the chat. So first you have some virtual shout-outs to the OpenBOW devs. Very much appreciate the efforts, especially after the HashiCorp licensing fiasco. And then another question was about Delinea, the secret server. Are you familiar with that? Delinea?
Yes.
Delinea secret server. And the question was basically, could OpenBOW replace it, and what are the key differences?
Of course, no problem at all. Drop in, done. No, we would probably have to, first of all, do an overview of the capabilities the user is already using of Delinea, and then check on the data migration parts, for example. But yeah, most capabilities are usually in there. Now, what sometimes can be a blocker is if you, let's say you have a very specialized product specifically for PKI, and then maybe there's specific capabilities that are not in place yet. Well, let us know. We are happy to learn and talk and see how we can extend OpenBOW if anything is missing.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Regarding sorry. If you look at the source code, what's the percentage of still being code from the fork, or how much of the code has been rewritten now over the last 3 years?
So I can't give percentage, but more and more parts are being touched on, sometimes due to refactoring changes, but also in some cases avoiding more dependency, you know, some modules where maybe the community decides, hey, let's not rely anymore on maybe a Hashi module because it might not be as reliable anymore in terms of licensing. In other cases, we just notice, of course, dependencies going stale or are unmaintained anymore. But yeah, there are still sometimes places where we see code that you know, can also be removed, but a lot of that happened over the first few months when the fork initially took place. Yeah.
And a follow-up question: what kind do you apply another license now on the new files you're going to create as a OpenBOW project, or you keep the one?
So the project is still MPL licensed and continues to do so, and we make sure to add the appropriate copyright headers, of course, and especially retain those that were already stemming from the Hashi origins. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you said it was initiated by IBM, and now IBM, so HashiCorp is part of IBM now, you said?
Yes.
And so what's IBM's take now on OpenBOW?
Well, we don't know officially. They left the technical steering committee at the beginning of this year, if I recollect correctly. But yeah, I mean, probably it's hard commercially. You drive a commercial product that is popular and solid, right? There are a lot of there's a lot of adoption of HashiCorp Vault, now called IBM Vault. Yeah, we'll see what the future brings. We don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Second question, do you know, is there any restrictions on the license of IBM Vault that would prevent you being API compatible in the future?
So far not, but we always have to be very cautious in implementations and contributions as well. So if you know, users tell us, hey, I looked at the Vault source code and then I adopted that, well, that's a no-go, because then the pull request is already tainted, and our co-maintainers are obligated to also follow a clean room methodology, so they cannot look at patches or releases, things like that. For example, if they're CVEs, we are only able to look at the CV description and then have to understand ourselves where the issues might be or the bugs. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.